Hello, everyone. Welcome to Navigating Cybersecurity Careers in the AI Era. I'm so glad you joined us today. I'm also delighted to be joined by our outstanding panel. Let me introduce them to you. First, we have Stacy Laurent, Lead Technical Program Manager and Vice President at JP Morgan Chase. Stacy is based out of Houston, Texas, and is joining us from London today. Stacy, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Stacy is one of our grads from WGU, graduating with a master's in IT management recently. Next up is Josh Molen, principal and founder of Natsar, where Josh advises global clients on cybersecurity and risk management. Josh is based out of New York and is a graduate of our Information Security and Assurance Master's Program. Josh, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And last but not least, Erica Connor. Erica is Chief Information Security Officer at Sempra Infrastructure. She is based out of Houston, Texas, and has a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and information assurance from WGU. And if I'm correct, Erica, soon to have a master's degree also in cybersecurity and information assurance. Welcome.
Thank you, Paul, and you are correct. Appreciate that.
No pressure. In addition to our panelists today, Mike Morris, our Senior Associate Dean, and Jason Hammond, Lead Academic Program Manager of our cybersecurity programs, are with us and helping out with our Q&A today. Thanks so much to Mike and Jason for joining us. Finally, I'm Paul Bingham, Senior Vice President and Executive Dean of WGU's School of Technology. Super happy to be with you and to be your moderator today. So with that, let's jump into some questions. I think I'd like to start with where we are today. The title says that we're in the AI era. And with AI and the rapid advancement and evolution of technology, we know that things are changing on the daily. So let's get an idea with our first couple of questions about what the threat landscape looks like, at least today, knowing that tomorrow it might change. Erica, let's start with you. As you look back at your career, or maybe even at last week, what has changed most in the common attacks that you and your teams are looking for?
Yes, great question, Paul. What we are seeing a lot of, and not just me, but several of my peers, is the attack vector for third-party risks. We are constantly seeing our own partners that are out there that are being attacked by threat actors. Along with that is, all the AI attacks that we're seeing as well, whether it's via email or phone, but it's definitely something that we are keeping an eye on. We have our threat intelligence analysts keeping a lookout for all our partners and making sure that we protect our company.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that is. And it's a good thing you have folks that are always digging in to see what's new. We for so long in the industry, we talk about 0 day. And at this point, it's almost like 0 hour because, never saw that before. Josh, you have clients all across the globe. How would you contribute to that answer?
Yeah, I think her answer was great. And supply chain is certainly an issue that continues to come up. The other thing, especially relative to AI specifically, that some of my clients are really struggling with is just how sophisticated phishing attacks have become. So phishing still remains the number one attack vector that bad guys are getting into networks, but they're so much better at it now. The old things that we looked for, to your question, what are people noticing? Well, I think they're noticing these attack emails are so much better compiled. There's not the traditional spelling errors and grammatical errors and things that we used to tell everybody to look out for. I mean, still good advice, but now these messages are really well crafted. And in fact, they're using AI to not only craft those messages, but I think also using enough information that they can glean from social media and other areas to make the messages so much more believable. And I think that's really been a big problem for a lot of people, especially smaller security teams that don't have a lot of staff, or maybe some more of these advanced tools to pick up on those things.
Oh, that's really great advice and insight. Erica, I think Josh helps us understand, and you mentioned yourself too, how AI is really helping the bad guys. as your teams and as your threat analysts are looking for this, is there some kind of telltale signal that we should all be looking for that either says, oh, this is danger, this is AI, or just who cares if it's AI, danger, this is something that you should be on the lookout for because somebody's trying to do something bad to you or your systems?
I mean, I think you can still pull in a lot of the traditional mechanisms of how to read a phishing email. So we continue to educate our employees and even our own parents and students and our kids because they are becoming more apparent. But I would say the telltales are not as easy anymore because of the technology that the threat actors are using to make them more sophisticated. But again, it's always comes back down to education and making sure that we are informing our employees about how to best see these. And if you see something, say something. So in other words, if you're just not sure, make sure that you report it. And those attacks, come to our SOC analysts. They get a better view of them. They're able to tear them apart and see if they can, find something unique about them and pull them out of the environment if we have more than one that came in.
Yeah, really great insight. And, I sit here and think sometimes as I meet friends or family members who talk to me about the security environment or landscape right now and like, oh, AI must really be changing everything. And it's sort of like, well, yeah, it is, but it's not because it's making, as you mentioned, Josh, like, wow, the bad guy's grammar is much better than it used to be.
Yes.
But the tried and true attacks are still the things that work. Here we are talking about the sophistication of AI, and yet we're still talking about, for example, phishing attacks through email, because the data, they fluctuate from day to day, but the data are still consistent in that something like 90% of all network intrusions or attacks are originated through phishing. And so AI is helping sort of facilitate or augment the bad actors' way to get into our systems and attack us. But the old tried and true attacks are still the things that are working. And unfortunately, it's preying upon our human behavior and human instincts that are granting most people access to systems. Would you tend to agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that those traditional mechanisms that when you look at a phishing email, the way the email looks, now there are some tactics that they're using that are a little bit different that where they're actually getting access to the identity, right? And that's where it gets difficult because this threat actor is acting and impersonating the employee in the real world of the job that they do day in, day out. And so that's the shift that it's moving towards, is more than impersonation attacks where they actually are already inside your network.
Yeah, I guess if your team gets an email from you, Erica, or a video or a voice call that says, hurry up, you have to do this right now, they probably aren't going to question it the way they would if it was some random message from somebody. And as you say, AI makes that a lot easier. So interesting, I guess we're sort of turbocharging or adding that turbo button to speed up the way that the attacks are evolving. And it's really the bad people are still trying to exploit the same old vulnerabilities that have existed before. So I think the natural evolution from that is, okay, things are as bad as they ever were, and in some ways worse. And so, Josh, let's go back to you and let's talk about some of the solutions that we might have for defending against those attacks. And I guess I would just ask you in general how to improve our defensive posture in our networks, and then I'll ask a little more specifically about like, okay, great, but if there's something we could do today or this week, like what would be the things that you would recommend?
Yeah, sure. And I think the discussion that you and Erica just had is a perfect segue into this, because my recommendation is not that fancy and it doesn't involve tools. You just have to get the basics correct. The blocking, the tackling, and what a lot of people call basic cyber hygiene has to be in place, because although our adversaries are using more advanced tools to attack us, they are getting in because generally of a misconfiguration or not having multi-factor authentication in place, or having too much information available in systems that really shouldn't be there. So it's still getting those basics right. My recommendation, and when I work with clients, whether it's a small business or even large federal agencies, this problem exists across the board. Generally, I start with some sort of a cybersecurity assessment, and they're not doing the basics right. And a lot of times they're focused on a fancy new tool, or they get this analysis paralysis where they think, well, if we could just get this next thing, we'll be good. But in the meantime, they're not doing anything that really is important. So I think to your question about what can they do next, my recommendation is pick a standard that you're going to use to assess your organization, the CIS controls, the NIST cybersecurity framework, something else, and start doing that gap analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What gaps do you have? And then second to that is, don't forget the important part of leadership and executive communications and all of that, and make sure that you're talking to them in non-technical business terms and get individuals on board to understand these just aren't vulnerabilities that we need to patch. These are business impactful gaps that we have that we need to get fixed, and hopefully get that support from leadership to do the basic blocking and tackling the right way.
So glad you mentioned that. Just the existence of a plan sometimes is a huge step forward, because, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? But actually taking the time, whether it's from certainly you're on good standing if you choose a framework to base it on, but actually having the plan and then going through the exercise of a tabletop exercise or some sort of simulation where you have not just the security personnel, but the business stakeholders sitting around a table, and suddenly going through as if it was the real thing and recognizing, oh shoot, this would be really bad. And sometimes we're not at all prepared for this, I think is really great advice. Erica, I think you were going to add to that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Josh. I mean, that was the first thought that came to my mind, is ensuring that you're doing all the right things from a best practice perspective, following a framework, and not stopping there, continuing to test your environment and checking the maturity of it, and sometimes change up partners that you work with so that you can make sure that you're finding all those things and gaps that need to be addressed. But definitely the basics, the threat actors are still finding their way in, and with those lessons learned that we see with all the companies that are being attacked and hacked and had incidents or breaches, never leave those unturned. Those lessons learned are golden for organizations.
Yeah, really great advice. Stacy, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about this. In your role, you don't necessarily have to worry about all of the security of JP Morgan's infrastructure, thankfully, because this way you can sleep at night. But certainly, as you look at the customers that you have across the JP Morgan infrastructure, or even your own family and friends, they also, as consumers or users of internet and of their own devices, what kind of advice might you have for them in protecting themselves?
I think it's pretty much just kind of chiming in with Josh and Erica about governance, resiliency, and then just making sure that there's clear communication about why we have to be vigilant about more controls around cybersecurity, and what's the impact and what's the implication. So I always am a big advocate whenever we're talking about with cross collaborating across different lines of businesses within the firm, about why does the cyber controls matter? What's the impact? So I think we do a better job of getting better adoption when we understand impact and what's the reason why we're doing the things that we have to do. And I think when you have that clear communication and governance around the things that you're doing, I think we do a better job of making sure that cybersecurity isn't just an afterthought, but it's something in the forefront of our mind, and ensures that everything is protected from the infrastructure to the applications and to, even just a regular person in their home.
That's really great advice. Thanks for that. Josh, you mentioned something that I want to go back to and repeat. You mentioned what the insiders refer to as those magic three initials, MFA, multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. And it's that annoying, pesky little thing that takes 1 or 2 extra seconds as we log in, but is so vital in being able to help protect our devices and our networks. It kind of reminds me of the old joke. I don't know if it's a joke. Kind of reminds me of the old saying, "How fast do you have to be to outrun a bear?" And the answer is, well, just faster than the next person. And MFA sometimes is like that. You want to do those things that keep your company from being sort of the low-hanging fruit for the people that want to go and do better. If MFA is so important, and yet we know that there's resistance at the very human level of adding that one authentication process, what, in your experience, what's the actual level of adoption or use of MFA, either in the corporate or even in a personal sense? Any of you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I would say that, it's years ago, it was a recommendation, right? And at this point in age that we are in today, you have to use it. It is important and apparent for all the companies to be able to use that. We make it as a requirement, right? So it's anything that we're going to put in place, it's a requirement to have MFA. And, using that at home or, with our personal lives, with our kids, our parents, it's sometimes you have to explain to them what could really happen, bring it back to them to say, do you want your bank account to disappear, right? All this money that you work hard for, do you want it to dissipate? And when you kind of tie it back to something that matters to them, then it makes a difference to them, and they are receptive to it.
I agree, Erica. I think that when you frame the story around something that's unique or specific to the person, then they are more receptive to understanding it. I myself am a big fan of MFA just simply because, and it makes me feel a little bit more secure. Just simply where I am right now, because I'm visiting from a different country, and most people have been telling us, make sure you keep your phone in your pocket. Don't walk around with your phone in your hand. There are people on bikes that will take your phone. I'm less concerned about it because I have the MFA. So if they could get the phone, I know they can't do much with it because they don't have the multi-factor authentication that I have on another device. It'll stop them from being able to get into my phone. So to me, just being in tech and understanding, having that extra resiliency in place and how it protects me, I feel more secure about it. But to the everyday person that don't think about technology or think about cybersecurity controls in that way, they just think it's a nuisance or it's just an extra thing to do that I don't want to be burdened with. But when you explain it so have you thought about if your phone gets taken, or have you thought about if your laptops get stolen? If you have a second authentication factor in place, it stops them from being able to do some damage to, bank accounts, emails, contacting other people. So like I said, there's so much importance behind being, the cybersecurity controls, and it's not just, it shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be something that you always are forwardly thinking about.
Yeah, those are great points. I'm old enough to remember when our parents had station wagons and we could take long trips, and we never even thought twice about, oh, the kids are just going to lay down in the back of the station wagon and take a nap or whatever. And their seatbelts, to your point, Stacy, seatbelts were an afterthought. There's something that they're required to put in cars, but nobody really uses them. And then, I think it was like the 1970s when suddenly there were these massive campaigns to say seatbelts save lives, and the lawmakers started creating laws to protect us. And now I don't know that anybody gets in a car and doesn't just automatically put their seatbelt on. And so these aspects of cyber hygiene in our practices that are the easy little things, yes, it takes 1 or 2 more seconds, but the benefits so far outweigh the investment in time that we just have to change the way we do things. Josh, in addition to MFA, comparing back to say 2 or 3 years ago, is there anything different about how defenders are protecting networks?
Yeah, I think so. In fact, we've talked a lot about some of the challenges with AI from a defense perspective, but actually AI has done a lot for the cyber defenders on the good side too. So I think in the last couple of years, I've seen a lot more security operations centers and incident response teams moving from manually reviewing things and doing manual detection to now more AI-driven detection and integrated tooling like EDR and XDR and SIM tools and SOAR tools where there's a lot of automation being done. And I've also seen just great training use cases with AI too, where a security operations center analyst that's working the midnight shift that sees something strange in a PCAP file can dump it into AI and say, double check me on this. Am I seeing this right? What are these ports and protocols? And what other things should I be looking at? And it's just a really nice force multiplier for some of them to be able to have. So that's certainly one. I think the shift to cloud first with a lot of organizations is changing the workflows for our cyber defenders. So instead of just patching servers, they're managing configurations and identity and access management and risks between SaaS models and infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, and just understanding who is on the hook for what when something bad does happen. And I think hybrid and remote work, of course, has been around now, especially since COVID, but that did immediately expand the attack surface. And we're still dealing with that from a cyber perspective of visibility and vulnerability management and patch management and endpoint detection and response capabilities with things in remote areas. And a lot of larger organizations got this nailed pretty quickly, but there's still a lot of mid-sized and small organizations that really struggle with this. And then I think as far as a habit for organizations to start looking at, and you briefly touched on this, or maybe Erica did, but continuous improvement and definitely tabletop exercises and those breach and attack simulations, because we definitely want to find the holes and the issues ourselves before they're pointed out to us from an adversary. And there's such value in doing tabletop exercises, and especially ones that bring in people from outside of IT and cybersecurity, that they can then see how things would work. And how does finance get involved when there's an attack, and how does the communications team and the executive office? Bringing them in is not done nearly enough, but is so powerful when it is done.
And I'd like to add on that one too, Paul, just something that sometimes is an afterthought for companies and organizations is really the investing in your team, right? Because they're gonna have to find solutions for these attacks, and getting them the skill set that they need to get to that next level is going to be very important, especially in how we're evolving so fast with those attack vectors.
Yeah, so great. You all have such a rich experience and perspective and knowledge about this. Not only are you great panelists for this webinar, but it's obvious why you have the roles that you have, because you're so well informed about this. Erica, you just mentioned, all of you have mentioned not only the AI and the machines, but the human element and the importance of keeping a human in the loop. Stacy, let's go to you. You're part of hiring panels in your role at JP Morgan, and you yourself have gone through some recent promotions. Congratulations, by the way. And so if humans still matter, which they obviously do, we read in the news recently that, all these jobs are going to be eliminated because of AI, and people are often asking, what jobs are going to still stick around, or what are the skill sets? Erica just mentioned the human skill sets that people need to be able to make sure that they can help contribute to the security of their companies. What are those kinds of roles or baseline skills that help make people more hireable in your experience?
For the cybersecurity side of things, as far as the good roles, it's always going to be the SOC analyst, risk analyst, AIM support, GRC analyst. But also, I think another thing that most people don't think about when they think about cybersecurity is that it still needs project manager, it needs auditors, it needs communication. I think Josh literally just mentioned all of the other roles that come into place when you're thinking about cybersecurity. It touches everything. So there's always a need for supporting roles to help with all of the cybersecurity hygiene. So again, SOC, risk, analyst, AIM, GRC, project managers are definitely needed. I spent a lot of my time working with lots of project managers and program managers and operation managers, communication managers, to make sure that there's governance and communication, that the projects that they're being planned correctly, and that they stay on schedule and they stay within scope. So those are, I think, some really great roles that people don't think about, besides the traditional that you think about for cyber. In regards to skills, I think there's always going to be the soft skills that I think are going to help you most in addition to those hard skills. But collaboration, communication, problem solving is a big thing, and being able to think quickly and communicate concisely is always going to be the things that your resume is going to get you in the door, but those soft skills are going to be able to allow you to be able to execute well.
That's really great advice and great insight from your lived experience. Often I hear from people, hey, I really want to work in cybersecurity. What should I learn or what should I know? And like Stacy just told us, there's such a wide variety of opportunities in cybersecurity. Usually I answer back, well, it depends what you're interested in, and then double down on that. But as you look to hire people for your teams, is there sort of a one thing that you're looking for in a skill set?
Well, that's a good question. I have hired probably hundreds of people through my various roles and doing this for over 20 years now in different cyber capacities. And definitely the soft skills are important. And the point recently about your resume gets you in the door, that's absolutely correct. And when I would open a SOC analyst or a CERT analyst role in my last job at the Center for Internet Security, it was not uncommon to have 500 to 600 applicants within the first couple of days of posting that job. So it's really tight competition right now in the job market. So there are a few things I think to stand out, and definitely having a good, strong foundation of technology in general, understanding networking and network communications, how operating systems work, vulnerability management, just basic cyber defense understanding. And one thing with cybersecurity is sometimes it's an inch deep but a mile wide, and we don't ever expect anyone to know everything about everything. You should have a couple things that you're really knowledgeable in, but you should also have at least some knowledge of other things to have enough of a conversation to then say, you need to talk to somebody else who specializes in that. But I think really at the core too, that I always look at, my questions are, could we see this person on our team? And would we want to work with this person all, day in and day out? So that back to the soft skills, because we can train those technical skills pretty easily. But is this going to be somebody would be a good member of our team that we would want to work with? And I think from the technical side, to be good at defense, you have to understand the tactics of the offense. So you don't have to be a certified ethical hacker or understand all the ins and outs, but I do think you have to understand what the adversaries are doing to us, so then we know how to appropriately look for that and block that as well on our side. Great.
Erica, any tips for people as they're assembling their resumes? Both Stacy and Josh mentioned soft skills. How do you have any tips on demonstrating those skill sets in your resume?
I have lots of them. I have a lot of mentees that I work with, some in high school, some are in college, some are cyber professionals already, but maybe want to be in leadership. And so, I do talk to them a lot about culture fit. Culture fit is very important. I think Josh mentioned that. It's how do you tie into an organization? What makes you stand out more from all the competition that you're working towards. When you think of a resume, yes, it is education. Yes, it is certifications. Depending on the role, right? If it's a more senior role, then those things you are looking for. But I also look for curiosity. Someone who actually questions things and asks, about our organization and how they can tie into the organization and talk about some of the skill sets that they have that they know they could help the organization or the team with. And I think that's, research, obviously, making sure people research the company before they apply, before they actually get in front of the interviewer. That's important. So yes, there's definitely a lot of tips and tricks on making sure your resume is, stands out. I'm not one of those that like to see, photos and images and things like that. I think that's definitely a style out there. But for me, it's the verbiage that you're putting in there, the technology that you're touching and have used, and then being able to articulate some of the things that you have helped in your past jobs, even if you haven't made it into cyber yet, but it's how can you articulate that. Communication is very key.
Really great advice. Stacy, we just heard from Erica about how she has both had mentors and serves as a mentor for various mentees and provides advice. In your experience, how important is that mentoring opportunity, whether you're a leader helping others advance through the organization or whether you're somebody looking to advance in an organization?
Mentorship is very important to me. I would not be where I am in my career if it wasn't for the power of a really strong mentor. She believed in me when I didn't necessarily believe in myself. She empowered me. She literally held me accountable to the goals that I had set for myself. So I am a big advocate of mentorship and giving back, and it's something that I do in my career. That was the promise that I had to make. I'm mentoring you. I'm going to help you get to where you want to be. The only thing I want you to do is, carry it forward, take it forward. And I've been doing that for the past 5 years, and it means a lot to me. I think it's important to find a mentor. How you do so, it can be, and mentorship doesn't always look the same. You can have a professional mentor, you can have a personal mentor, but if it's someone that you want to grow professionally in your career, look for the strong leaders that are within your company. Have a conversation with them. And sometimes mentorship looks very different. I always tell people it's a long game. Someone doesn't automatically just say, yes, I want to be your mentor. Now, in an ideal case, they do, but you have that conversation. Here's the things I'm interested in. And I would love to, have a conversation with you. Maybe I can put some time on your calendar, maybe once a month or once every other month. And then if they agree that they would like a more regular cadence with you, then have a discussion about what does mentorship look like? Are they willing to take on that responsibility? Because it is a big responsibility to mentor people. I have 2 mentees and I'm passionate about them, and I try my best to prioritize what they need and how I can stay accountable to the things I want them to do and keep them accountable to their goals too. But it is a big commitment. So when you're thinking about mentorship, 1, are you gonna stay accountable? And 2, are you going to actually do the things that you promise yourself? So yeah, it's super important to your career and your growth is to have a mentor and have someone that's going to hold you accountable to the things that you want to do, and make sure that you don't let them down, you don't let yourself down.
I love that advice. And here we are talking about the AI era and how important technology is. And we keep coming back to the importance of those uniquely human aspects and skill sets that are the things that are going to help us to succeed in our careers. I also love that we were talking about mentors. One of the distinct differences in a WGU degree program is the inclusion of programs who are with students as supports and guides along the way. I'd like to ask each of you, since each of you has graduated from at least one of our WGU programs, I would like to ask each of you, what about your education has either helped or empowered you as you've moved forward or have ascended in your careers? Let's see, who are we going to start with? Erica, how about if we start with you?
I would say, first of all, I love my mentor. She is awesome and she holds me accountable. She's a great listener. I hold myself accountable though, because I do know that getting through my master's program is important. It's a self go. It's for myself, and I love talking to my mentor constantly, trying to get me to see where I am with my program. And for me, when I do anything that has to do with a goal, I set goals for myself, and the education has always been in the back of my mind. I push my kids, this is something that I want them to do and not have to do when they're older like me. But my program allows me to be a professional, a mom, and, but I also put myself accountable for that too, because I do have to balance the work, the life, the school, being a wife, and being a pet owner too. So, but I think, everything that I'm doing is all for my self. Like it's what we call branding ourselves, right? Setting up those goals. I have my short-term, mid-term, long-term goals. Everything that puts me accountable for everything that I do. So the schooling I have done with WGU has really helped me get to where I needed to be in life, and I'm very proud to be a WGU graduate for my bachelor's and looking forward to finishing my master's.
That's excellent, thanks. Stacy, we hear a lot about how much mentors contribute to our students' success at WGU. We also, as Erica just shared, hear a lot about how the flexibility in WGU's programs is helpful. Let's imagine I'm one of your friends or family members and I say, Stacy, I'm thinking of going back to school. I know that you went to WGU. What's unique about WGU that would make me consider it, that would, it sounds like considerate, that would help me to make the right choice in which school I should attend?
What I loved about WGU is the fact that you could go as fast or at a slower pace as you wanted to. And I knew that when I decided to go back to school for my master's, that I could not go back to school in a traditional way like we used to, where you have to sit in a classroom Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. My schedule just didn't allow me to have that type of, schedule. And I love the fact that that I could start my morning super early reading an article or reading something or looking at a webinar video and completing an assignment, or I could go as late in the evening as I wanted to on my lunch break, just take the time to read. But I really, really enjoyed the fact that if I had a weekend with nothing to do, I could read everything I needed to read and knock out a couple of the assignments and get it done. I controlled the pace of how fast I wanted to go with my courses. And if I wanted to speed them up one week, I could. If I needed to slow it down for maybe take a month to complete an assignment, I had that flexibility. So that really, really worked really well for me. And that's one of the big selling points for it too. But also the fact that you were given so much information because it's self-learning. And everything that I do in my day-to-day job, sometimes I work with lots of teams to be able to complete something, and sometimes I'm doing everything on my own. There's lots of information that you have to retain and understand, and then you're asked to kick out a deliverable, do a PowerPoint presentation on something I just learned about, an hour ago, and you're needed to action that pretty quickly. So I felt really confident in doing that now because everything I had to do with WGU was always a matter of urgency because I wanted to get things done pretty quickly and I had to digest a lot of information. So I never get really overwhelmed by anything like, oh, it's a lot of work. Okay, let me take a look at it. I'll, sit back, think about it, have an action plan and go right into execution mode. So it really prepared me for the day-to-day of my job and making things feel like not as overwhelming as it was. I thought about it pre-master's degree because I did used to get kind of bogged down in the details, but now it's like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a whole book you have to read this weekend and then do a deliverable. Of course, you can do it.
Oh, that's great advice. Josh, you have had a lot of experience and you had already a lot of experience before you pursued your master's degree with WGU. Is there anything that stands out to you as kind of new learning or technical aspects of your degree that then added as the icing on the cake to the experience that you already had?
Yeah, I think when I started my WGU experience from my master's degree, I probably had about 10 or 11 years in cybersecurity. And the reason I went for my master's is because I knew the long range goal for me was to continue to move up in the organization. And in fact, not too long after I graduated from my master's degree, I ended up getting promoted to the CISO of the federal agency I was working for. And one of the reasons I think WGU helped me in preparing for those promotional opportunities is not so much on the technical side, although that was very helpful, but it was really on the looking at the bigger picture of cybersecurity, on the policy, on especially risk management. One of the things I implemented almost immediately after taking the risk management class in my master's degree was creating a risk register for the agency and bringing everybody in and going through and identifying the various risks that we had. And that was huge and led to me getting about $2 million of unplanned funds to go fix some of those risks simply because nobody really had documented them before. And it was something, an artifact I could take to the CFO and say, here's some quick wins. We can knock some risks out based on that. So it was definitely the courses in the program that were about just leadership and leading cyber teams and those bigger pictures that were very helpful for me.
What a great answer, as have all of the answers been today. I wish we had more time to spend together, but I know each of you have important and busy jobs that you have to get back to. Thank you so much to Stacy, Josh, and Erica for joining us today. Thanks again to Mike and Jason for manning the Q&A for us. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Whether you already know about WGU or you're looking into it, please give us a chance to answer your questions and join you on your journey to succeeding in technology in the AI era. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Another aspect that we hear so frequently from our graduates and students who are even pursuing their degrees is the opportunity to earn industry certifications while you're pursuing your degree. Such a great opportunity for you to earn those certifications even before you earn your degree, so that many of our students are getting promotions within their careers even before they complete their degree. And then, of course, their diploma is just the icing on the cake and helping unlock even more opportunities for them. As always, we invite you to learn more by visiting wgu.edu.